Here we go. Hey,
Hi.
welcome to Tips from Your Boyfriend, episode 19. I know it's been a little while. We've been busy with, well, my birthday was yesterday.
Yay!
And then I turned 35, and then we've been busy with other stuff. So we couldn't really get to this podcasting and live show for a little bit.
Yeah.
But now we're back. We're going to be talking about a lot of stuff. But I'm Chingis.
I'm Bethany.
Follow us on Tips from Your Boyfriend on Instagram and TikTok. And then I am on Twitter at the Calston. Not active too much, but I will try to be better about that. And you are?
At Bethany Calsto on Instagram and TikTok.
All right. And then today we wanted to talk about a lot of things. But first, tip of the day, drink less alcohol. Yeah. And I don't know if you want to lead us away with the alcohol topic we want to talk about.
So I never really drink too much alcohol, so I don't know that I'm necessarily the person to start with it. So first of all, I can't have any kind of beer. I have celiac disease, and probably TMI story, but the couple of times I had beer before I knew that I had celiac, I would get like really bad digestion from it that I thought was totally normal. And after I found out about celiac, I asked my friends and they were like, no, that's not normal. So I was like, okay. So outside of that, I'm a lightweight, so I try to avoid alcohol too, just because I get tipsy very quickly, and I'm very much like a make-out drunk, where I'm like, find the hottest person near me, and I'm like, hey, so not great. So I would say for that, I've never really, like, I can count on probably one hand how many times I've been buzzed or tipsy in my life. On top of that, I just don't like how it makes my body feel. I don't like feeling bloated. I don't like feeling just hangover, sore, groggy, whatever. It's not my fave.
Yeah.
So for that reason, I've never been big on alcohol. On rare occasions, like I'll have a little bit of wine, or if I'm at a wedding, like I'll have a glass, but outside of that, it's not my thing. So I don't know that I'm necessarily the person to talk about this. Whereas you, on the other hand, come from a different perspective.
So I feel like I had a typical experience of drinking alcohol of somebody who's from the Northeast. And per your standards, I used to drink a lot.
Yeah.
I've cut down a lot. But per my standards, I thought I just drank as much as all my peers did. You know what I mean? Like, I'll just socially drink with my friends on weekends. And then depending on, like, if we're going out to have a party or something in my early 20s, I'd be, like, binge drinking on weekends and getting, like, really drunk. And I feel like that was a normal experience for, like, me and my buddies. And I feel like that was a normal experience for almost everybody on the East Coast. And, like, everybody on the East Coast, like Boston, New York, DC, like, even going into, like, the Midwest to, like, Chicago or somewhere else like that, everybody drinks. Drinking a lot is actually pretty normal. Drinking a lot of beer is normal. Having wine all the time is normal. Like taking shots and then like going out and having fun, that's normal. But it seems to me that isn't like everybody's normal experience. That being said, I think everybody, and I mean almost everybody, like everybody would stand to benefit if they drank less alcohol. Like their just health would just improve by leaps and bounds if they just stopped drinking as much beer or as much wine or liquor or whatever their choice is. And so that's why I want to do the tip of the day is to stop drinking alcohol. Not stop, reduce as much as you can. Because I know that there's going to be a lot of people out there who are going to accuse me of saying like, oh no, we're responsible drinkers and we can have fun and be responsible about things. And I'm just like, yeah, go ahead. If you're responsible, you can handle it, go ahead. But still, drinking less will still be better for you.
Yeah, if you want to move the needle towards healthy, then reducing that intake is going to be really beneficial. So I had a client who was preparing for her wedding, and she was a school teacher, and every night that her routine was to come home and have a glass of wine while she was cooking dinner. And like when I say a glass of wine, I mean like heavy pour.
Right.
And so we had kind of ruled out everything else that she could do. She was a pretty clean eater. She worked out with me consistently, and there wasn't really much else we could change. And I said, hey, let's cut down your drinking. So maybe instead of eliminating, let's go every other night. And so she did that. She lost 5 pounds just from that one change. So it's really significant, just narrowing down by a few drinks a week. That can really be beneficial.
Yeah, and there was like a study that recently came out, I was reading on Reddit, that basically said that no amount of alcohol is healthy for you. Like whatever is in wine that is healthy for you, because there'll be a lot of people who go out there and defend like a glass of red wine or something like that. It's not the alcohol that's healthy for you. The alcohol is actually bad for you. It's whatever else is in the red wine is actually like decently like might benefit you. So no amount of alcohol is good for you. And I think that most experts are pretty much catching up with this nowadays. On top of that, I'm pretty sure the younger generation is drinking less and less also.
Yeah,
So,
mocktails are a big thing right now.
Yeah.
I've heard that even in New York and LA and even Boston, I think they have a fully non-alcoholic liquor store where it's just mocktails essentially, or kombucha, or different things to kind of take the place
Yeah.
of alcohol essentially.
and I think that's dumb.
Well, some of the CBD drinks, I think for people who want a mellowing effect, probably have a similar vibe to alcohol, but yeah, I agree. If you're just swapping alcohol for sugar, it's not a great swap.
So you go to a liquor store and there's no alcohol in the drinks there. You might as well just go grab a soda or some juice or kombucha. We drink a lot of kombucha. Make some tea, make some coffee, like make anything else to drink. Put some electrolytes or protein into your water and just drink water.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think the only reason why there are liquor stores that don't have any alcohol in it is because all these big beer companies, winemakers, liquor producers, I think they're all just losing money hand over fist. And they see these like cultural, social changes where the young kids don't drink alcohol anymore, and they're still trying to like make sure that they're making some sort of money off it. But I don't think they're gonna live.
To your point, though, I think it's such a smart move, though, because people who are used to drinking alcohol on a regular basis out of habit, or say they're even an alcoholic or whatever, you don't just stop cold turkey. In most cases, you need to fill that with something else. And I think that that's a good way of kind of edging your way out of drinking alcohol. It might not be like, because you're going to want to have something in your hands, right? You're going to want to have something to unwind with at night. So I feel like it's a good in-between step out of working your way out of it.
I agree. Like you can have like a, it's like people who used to people who used to smoke cigarettes. It's like their transition away from smoking cigarettes was to go to a vape.
Oh.
And then they'd vape, and then allegedly that'd be better for you, and then allegedly they would stop at one point, right? And then like they would stop smoking or taking nicotine in general.
Yeah.
It's like chewing gum, you know what I mean? You use cigarettes, and then you go to chewing gum, and then you're supposed to, once you're done with that, like wean yourself off, you're just supposed to stop entirely. I don't know how much that works. I feel like anybody who wants to quit cigarettes, the successful people just quit cold turkey.
Sure.
Same with people who stop drinking, they just quit cold turkey and then just never touch it again.
I would agree with that. I do think there is value to, like, especially, like, for example, like when you go to parties with your friends, you brought your own non-alcoholic beer.
I used to bring non-alcoholic. Now I just bring like a 6-pack or something. It's more like, at this point, I don't ever drink on weekdays. I don't ever drink by myself on weekends. I never drink at all anymore unless I'm going to like a get-together or a party with my friends. And I drink with my friends for a couple reasons. Number one, it is a social lubricant in and of itself, in the sense that if they're all drinking and then you have a beer in your hand, you avoid all those weird, awkward conversations like, oh, why aren't you drinking? You think you're better than us? You stop drinking? Like, you're worried about your health? Beer's not bad for you.
It's crazy how triggering it is.
Yeah.
I could not believe that because you went for a year without drinking.
Yeah.
And every get-together we went, people were like, well, why did you stop drinking? Like, you're gonna drink again, right? Like, you have to start drinking again. Like, you're gonna start drinking again. Like, they just could not let it go. And it was really weird for me to see. And then also, too, just cultural shock for me when I moved here, because in LA, you get people who drink or party, but at the same time, people like pay for their sins, right? Like they'll day drink and then they'll go for a hike afterwards to burn off the calories. Or if they do have a couple drinks at night, it's literally a couple. And then the next day they're working out and doing whatever else, doing IVs and hydrating and all the extra things. Whereas out here, I remember meeting up with girlfriends for, dinner, and they'd be like, oh, let's grab a drink. And I'm thinking, a drink? And I get there and they're ordering like drink after drink after drink. And I'm like, oh, this is a Tuesday night.
Yeah.
Like, we're not even trying here. What's going on?
It's definitely like a cultural shift between
So
the West Coast and
different.
East Coast. Yeah.
So different.
And like there's so many rituals. I don't know how to describe it. They're like rituals associated with drinking around here.
Yeah.
It's a cultural aspect.
I would agree with
You
that.
go to a party, you have a couple beers, you get drunk, and then everything goes to shit. And like all of a sudden everybody's getting angry with each other, and that's your cue to go home. And you're like, everybody also uses drinking as like a coping mechanism here. It's like, oh, I had a hard day at work. I'm going to pour myself like a glass of whiskey and then unwind that way. Or like a couple glasses of wine after a long nursing shift or something like that. I remember when I was a bartender one day, this nurse used to come in around noon, not noon, like 11 a.m.
Wow.
And she just came off like a night shift as a nurse. And she would just come to the bar, pound like 2 or 3 martinis, and then leave.
Wow. That's intense.
Yeah. But she was an ER surgeon assistant or something like that. So she was in the ER, and then she would be helping with like a bunch of stuff. And so she saw some stuff.
Sure.
So I don't really blame her. It's not a good coping mechanism. It's not healthy for her in the long run.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Well, there was an interesting podcast that we listened to. I think it was Andrew Huberman, where he was talking about how as little as 1 drink a week will rewire your brain to be more impulsive. Which was crazy to think, because you think of like literally 1 drink, 1 8-ounce or whatever serving size pour is enough to alter your brain for the rest of your decision making for that week, to make you be more impulsive and less intentional in what you're doing.
Yeah.
Which is so crazy.
I don't think the relation is that it's not that strong, you know what I mean? You don't go all the way from like a 1 impulsivity to like a 10 impulsivity for 1 drink.
Sure.
But I can definitely see like if you have 1 drink and you might go from like a 1 to a 2 or like whatever, or 4 to a 5.
Yeah.
And like the way you're measuring this, obviously you can tell between when somebody has changed in impulsivity, but like I don't think it's that much of it. 1 drink isn't going to be that much of a, what do you call it?
Sure.
Effect.
But realizing, though, most people don't only drink 1 per week.
Yeah.
Which is why it's like kind of a crazy stat. And then also, too, just considering impulsivity in general, too. Like if you're already an impulsive person, to amp that up is a little scary.
I mean, this is why like what you want to do tip of the day is like drink less.
Yeah.
More and more research is coming out. More and more is just infecting our culture. Not infecting, being introduced into our culture that drinking is just not good for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like there's no kind way, there's no easy way of saying it, or there's no sugar-coated way of saying that alcohol is literally a poison.
Yeah.
And you bring it in there into your system because number 1, it makes you feel good. Number 2, it alters your state of mind, gets you drunk. And then number 3, after you do all this kind of stuff, your body has to essentially clear out all this poison in your system that you input into yourself.
Yeah.
And like I know that there's going to be another like excuse that people say like, oh, human beings have like a long history of drinking alcohol, and that's because alcohol historically has been a great way of killing bacteria, essentially making water safe to drink. It used to be like in the wild there wasn't any sort of like what do you call it, reliable way to filter water. And so whenever you went to the well or whenever you went to the river or something like that and you're drinking water, if your immune system is not built up for dealing with all the microbes in the water that you're drinking, then you're going to have a really bad time. And so like human beings essentially figured out, well, we can ferment some water with like all these other things in it, and then like we turn it into beer, and then that doesn't have any bacteria or anything else that'll kill you. And so like you drink that, sure, you get drunk, you poison yourself a little bit, but at least there's no bacteria in it that's gonna like cause you like, I don't know, to suffer.
I thought you were going to go to somewhere totally different with that argument. Because also, too, the way that they did alcohol back in the day didn't have nearly as much alcohol content as like our drinks nowadays, too. So it was significantly less burden. And then also less toxins in general that you had to live through during those days. But
Well, I guess what I'm saying is like thousands and thousands of years ago,
Sure.
when alcohol was being, not maybe a thousand, two, like, I don't know how many. Don't quote me. Like thousands of years ago when we were making alcohol, it's because it was safer to drink than just normal water you might find. Normal running water somewhere. That's all.
Yeah.
And that's why everyone's going to give me shit for being like, oh, well, human beings drank it all the time. It's like, no. We have safe filtered water now.
Yeah.
You can drink that. You don't have to ferment it to make it safe to drink.
Agreed.
That's funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, historically, when I was, not historically, Jesus, 10 years ago, I was drinking a lot. I was drinking up until essentially I was about 30 years old. And then me and you met. And then even before me and you met, I started cutting back because the hangovers were just something I just couldn't handle anymore. And then when me and you got together and we started dating and hanging out more, I almost completely cut out alcohol. And I stopped drinking alcohol for how long? It was like almost a year.
I want to say it was a solid year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where I cut a cold turkey and I just didn't have it ever. I went to parties and get-togethers and people were just drilling me. Like, why aren't you drinking alcohol? And nowadays I just don't drink, but whenever I go to parties, I'll have like a couple beers.
Yeah. No, it's
Just to avoid all that social awkwardness about it.
sure.
And I still like it. Still tastes good.
Yeah. I'm trying to think the last time I had alcohol. We were at a friend's wedding and oh my gosh, I literally had like a half a glass. This bartender just heavy pour. I think I had maybe 3 sips of it, like half a glass, and I was like, woo! Chingis was super freaked out. He's like, I have never seen you like this before.
Right.
I'm like, welcome to me buzzed.
Yeah. There was no gradual increase of
No,
drunkenness.
it was just like, boom.
There was no like step 1, 2, 3.
No.
Like, this is what I am after 1 drink. This is how I am after 2 drinks.
Yeah.
It was like, this is me sober. And now I'm drunk.
Straight up. It was pretty bad.
Like for me, when I have drinks, right, I have 1 beer. And this is what I'm like with 1 beer. It's 2 beers, 3 beers, 4 beers, 5 beers. But it was funny to see like that.
Yeah. Also, a hot tip, if you are going to go drinking, electrolytes are a game changer. And
Oh,
even,
yeah.
too, just as a way to stop you from drinking so much, if that's a struggle that you have when you're at a party, like, intermittently do water and bring some electrolytes with you because that'll save your life. But, yeah.
That's like one of those pieces of advice that we got in college, where it's like, be safe about drinking. Have 1 beer and then have a cup of water and then have another beer. It's the lamest, I don't know.
It's probably lame advice, but it's still good advice. Like, it saves you a hangover. It saves you from drinking more alcohol potentially. So it's not a bad thing to keep in the back of your mind.
I think it's the easiest way of doing it. It's like, listen, like if you're a kid and you want to drink or something like that, number 1, understand there's a poison. Drink it if you want to get like inebriated and drunk or whatever. Like that, it is what it is. It's a rite of passage for everybody. But like, understand it's a poison. It's bad for your body. It's completely bad for your body. There's no amount of alcohol that you can drink that's good for your body. You know what I mean? It's bad. It's just straight up bad for you. Understand that. You know what I mean? Don't live with the lie that you think that like, oh, maybe a little bit of alcohol is okay. No, even a little bit of alcohol is not okay. You're not drinking it to be healthy. You explicitly are drinking it because you probably just want to get drunk with your friends.
Well said.
Yeah, and then number 2, also understand and look to older generations of what alcohol has done to affect them. You know what I mean? Like if you want to see what the effect of alcohol is on some older people, just look at like every 30-year-old dude that's let themselves go. And has like a huge beer belly and like all that kinds of stuff. Yeah. And you're just like, that person probably when they were younger would probably be like you. You know what I mean? They're probably athletic, they're having fun, they're doing great. And then they just kept all those kind of bad habits into their 30s where their body just isn't going to be
metabolizing
it all and not staying healthy and fit on its own anymore. And then all of a sudden they're just like completely out of shape. They have this huge beer belly because they're still drinking way too much beer and like they're having hangovers on weekends and they're just, I don't know, that's not something you want to aspire for. That's not what you want to be like doing. That's not where you want to be. But like if you lie to yourself and think drinking beer is going to be completely fine with you, that is where you're going to be. And I don't think anybody wants that.
No. Yeah.
So just realize that, you know what I mean? Like, be smart about it. Drink with your buddies, have fun, get drunk. If you're not doing that, no alcohol, 0. It's poison. Don't do it.
Yeah. Valid point, babe.
Yeah.
What's next?
I think the next topic we wanted to talk about was advice we would have given our younger selves. Or didn't we want to talk about what was trending again? I don't remember.
Oh, yeah. We were going to talk about just talking about daily topics and things that are trending in health right now. One thing that I have noticed specifically is that people just give these blanket statements of all coffee before breakfast is terrible for your hormones, women. Don't do it. Or people who say you have to eat breakfast, it's going to mess up your body. Or people who say all this is bad for you or all that is bad for you. It's such a trend, and people will just copy saying it without actually thinking about it for a second or realizing that everybody is still unique. Like, even general health advice that sounds like for most people is probably good, might not be, right? Mm-hmm. Like, for example, right now there is a trend with, what do you call it? Cycling with your period. So depending on what stage of your period you are, you have 4 different stages of your period cycle. You're welcome, boys. And they say that you should go really light when you're on your period, maybe a little yoga, maybe a little walk, and like whatever. After your period, game on, go for the hit, go for the high intensity, go for, balls to the wall as hard as you want to go. And then once you've ovulated, then calm things down, go mellow, which not everyone's like that. I always feel like I am super energized on my period and I want to get after it. So if I were to just listen to their advice blindly, then I would be missing out on something that would be really beneficial to me and would feel good to my body. Right. So I guess with all that being said, listen to your body and how it feels to you, and run all medical advice from wellness influencers, whatever, run it through the filter of what feels right in your body and what you know to be true for you.
Yeah, it's like there are people out there, or social media influencers out there, or like anybody who wants to make like a blanket statement that's like extreme, essentially. It's just like, for men, oftentimes you'll go out there and say like, if you're a man, you have to be lifting heavy weights. And it's just like, you don't have to be lifting heavy weights. First of all, if you have no experience lifting heavy weights, you're going to injure yourself like that. Like, immediately, like, you go out there, you have no experience, you don't ask for anybody for advice, and all of a sudden you start deadlifting or squatting heavy, you're just going to hurt yourself. Like, no questions asked. I think the best advice is to have general advice where you should exercise. But then what does that mean to you as a person? So, like, you have to take that advice and make it very specific to you and where you are in life, like your interests specifically, also like what you want to get out of it and how you want to approach it in general. Blanket statements like, oh, you should lift heavy, you should be drinking this much protein every day, or you should be doing this and this. It's like, no, not really.
I think that's a really good point, though, of realizing what aligns with the person who you're taking advice from. Because if you have a totally different body, if you have a totally different lifestyle, if you have totally different goals from the person that you're taking advice from, it's not going to work. So kind of gauging all of those things, knowing, number one, what your goals are, and then number two, like how your body, being in touch with your body. It's so important.
It's just people like to generalize. People like to put out very strong statements, and then people like to back up those statements with studies. But then it's like, when you do all those studies and look into them, it's a general population, right? And you can't take a study that has a conclusion from a general population and apply it at an individual level. Like, you might be able to say like it's a decent predictor of XYZ, but then it's like you have to apply it to yourself and maybe see if like it actually doesn't predict XYZ for you. And so, like, with blanket statements, understand where they're coming from and maybe understand the wisdom behind them, but try not to like blanket apply them to yourself. See if it makes sense to apply them to yourself.
Another example I see a lot, I think I mentioned, was the coffee People say don't have coffee on an empty stomach, don't have coffee before breakfast, make sure that you eat a full breakfast first before you have a coffee. And they say that that's not to disrupt your hormones by getting your cortisol levels higher and whatnot. However, if you have low stomach acid like I do, it's helpful to have coffee because it actually helps you digest better. So again, what are your goals? What are your priorities in running it through that filter?
Yeah. The more I think about this, the more I'm just like, blanket statements are not the right way of doing it, the right way of saying it, because it's like, I can make it a very easy blanket statement. Don't drink soda, which is good advice.
Yeah, that's true.
So I'm like,
True that.
let's tweak this. We should say, do what works for you. Kind of, you don't want to ignore blanket statements, because like oftentimes there's a lot of truth to them. It's just that it might not apply to you.
Yeah.
And so it's like always just take them with a grain of salt and apply it to yourself.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, I don't know, what's a good example? I don't know.
I think the heavy lifting one that you mentioned was a pretty good one.
Right.
Because also, too, say you're watching some bodybuilder that's benching 300 pounds or whatever it is. When in life do you need to press something off your chest that's 300 pounds? You just don't,
Right.
you know? And so, yeah, if your goal is to look good, you don't have to go through all of that and put yourself at risk for injury to look good.
Right.
So kind of filtering it through what your goals are and what your needs are.
Yeah, but like I also want to like make sure that advice lands. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like if someone takes my advice and says, okay, well, I'm just gonna take every blanket statement with a grain of salt, maybe they'll literally just never change anything. But now I'm just wondering, like, it's hard to describe.
Got it.
Like, build healthy habits, take people's advice for what it is, but also trust your gut about a lot of things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Experts will often, so first of all, social media influencers, they don't know you. They're not going to give you advice that's tailored to you. And they're not going to be like out there to help you. You know what I mean? They're trying to influence. They're not out to help. Versus like if you go to a gym and you get like a personal trainer or something like that, and you tell them what you want, they will be there to help you. Like they're, especially because if it's a personal trainer, you're going to be higher than paying them per hour. They're going to be there to help you meet your goals of whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
So like maybe rely less on general kind of famous people online, because like who cares about celebrity opinions? They're kind of dumb sometimes. And more so focus on like kind of like your local sphere of influence, whether that's your local gym or like maybe even influencers in your region, or like people who might live close to you. I don't know if you can find those or not. Or like your family members, your friends, things like that.
I would disagree with that.
Really?
I would disagree with that because, for example, we live in Boston and people have no idea of what's healthy out here. And so their idea of healthy is like go put on a pair of tennis shoes and go running. And, or for example, you have family members who probably wouldn't give you the most solid workout advice or whatever, even though it's well-meaning. It just because they're close to you doesn't necessarily mean that they're experts in it. So I would just say that like when you have a piece of health advice that is interesting to you or that you are considering following, just do your due diligence of running it through, maybe looking it up and researching it a little bit if it's something that you're considering adding to your life, for one, and then number two, running it through your metrics of what are my goals, what's my body like, does this feel right for me, going with your gut, essentially.
Yeah, going through your gut.
Yeah.
Also train your BS filter.
Yeah.
Like, I think the younger generations are probably, Gen Z is probably really, really good at this because they're just so like online and social media. Train your BS filter to the point where it's just like, did this person say this because they want clout, because they want to like go viral, because they were trying to get attention, or did this person say this because it's actually decent advice?
Sure.
So often, anything you might see online that like has a very far-reaching, the person just said it just because they're trying to be controversial and get some reach and influence.
Yeah.
That's the only reason they said it.
I will say too, another good way of seeing whether something is potentially a good thing or not is looking at how extreme it is. If it is something extreme that this person is doing to say to do, probably not. If it's not something that you can do consistently, if it's not something that you can easily add to your lifestyle that you can keep up for the rest of your life, literally, then it's not something worth adding. Because the most extreme stuff is the stuff that it's going to work very quickly and it's going to disappear just as quickly. Yeah. So I would say that that's another good way of kind of looking at, whether it's something doable or right for you.
Yeah, definitely train your gut to see what's good and bad for you that you can think of. And then also train your BS filter to filter out anything that you think is just complete bullcrap.
Yeah.
And then anything that passes the bullcrap filter, you can check it with your gut also. And then if it passes both the bullcrap filter and your gut filter, yeah, think about it. Probably pretty good. And if you really want one more kind of piece of advice, run it by a friend or something and see what they think.
Sure.
That's all.
Yeah. Cool. Speaking of advice, what advice would you give to your younger self?
That's right. We wanted to talk about that.
In relationships, specifically to relationships, right?
I was gonna say, advice to our younger selves when we first started dating.
Okay.
Or dating in general.
Yeah.
And I think I wanted to talk about this one because when I first started dating when I was in my teens, I just didn't know what was going on. I don't think I had anybody to talk to about this, nor do I think I would have wanted to talk to anybody about this, right? Because it's when you're in your teenage years, especially as a guy, and it's just it feels embarrassing to ask somebody oh, what are you supposed to do here? What are you supposed to do there? You're supposed to be experienced already, and even though you have no fucking experience. Excuse me. And so oh, it's an entry-level job, but it requires 2 years of experience. It's what?
The worst.
It's just it's an entry-level job, but it requires experience. It makes no sense. And so I feel for a guy, that's what dating is. It's you're it's not expected of you per se, but you almost feel you should have experience with this going into your first relationship as it is, when you really don't have any experience with it. And it's always going to be very new and interesting, and you're going to make a lot of mistakes and all that kinds of stuff. But it's just important to have a basic framework, you know what I mean? Just for when you come out of college and you get your first job, you kind of understand that you're there in order to produce something because that's what people will pay you for, right? And just in relationships with dating when you're younger, when you get into a relationship, you're essentially coming together to form a bond with somebody else to produce something together at the end of the day. It's not some weird oh, you're just friends or something like that. You know what I mean? No, you have your buddies. This is this is a girlfriend or relationship. It's different.
Yeah.
Let me think about my piece of advice though.
Okay.
I don't know if you have any good advice.
Yeah, so for me, I didn't start dating until I was in my 20s. And a big part of that was because part of it was all the people that I had a crush on didn't have a crush on me. And so that just didn't work. So that's hard. That was a sad situation. Yeah. But I would say that I also took dating way too seriously. And I would have told myself, looking back, just enjoy it and have fun. Because I expected that if I dated someone, if I gave them my time, it had to end up in something. It had to end up in us getting married potentially. And I think that, well, that's not a bad thing, right? You want to see a future with someone if you're going to date them, right? You don't want to just date to date. But at the same time, I put so much weight on things, and I felt if I dated someone and we broke up, then I wasted my heart, I wasted my energy, I wasted my time, and I could have spent that towards my career. Because at the time I was I'm going to be a famous actress in LA, and so my time needs to go towards auditions.
You thought you were just going to be one and done?
Honestly, and I think part of that too is because I was raised in church, where it was don't date unless you're married, and God will send you the perfect person, this whole thing. And so I think that was kind of the way that I was brought up, because in church that's the way they talk, right? And so I think that I kind of took that, but to an extreme, even more than the way that they kind of raised me in that. And so that's something I would, woo!
I got you.
Do I get a wish?
Yes, you do.
Okay. So I think that would be my big one, is to enjoy and approach it from a curiosity of like, hey, I want to get to know this person and I want to learn about this person and like have fun and just see where it goes and see what lessons I can kind of take along the way and put less pressure on it. Because I just felt like it was like every encounter was like make or break, essentially.
I do agree that you should probably put less pressure on it.
Yeah.
It should be like I feel like there should be some sort of give and take, almost like a 50-50, where it's like you're in a relationship to have a little fun. You know what I mean? Get to know somebody, have a bunch of fun experiences with somebody else. But also there should be like a step-by-step kind of like progression to a relationship.
Yeah.
Where it leads to something.
Right.
Have fun with the leading maybe to something.
Yeah.
And if like one of those gives, you know what I mean, falls to the wayside, then that relationship probably wouldn't like work out. Like if your relationship is leading to something, but you're just not having fun or enjoying your time, it doesn't matter where it's leading. You probably shouldn't like stay in it.
Yeah.
Same with the opposite side. Like if you are having a lot of fun and you're having a great time, but it's not leading anywhere, then that's just another sad situation where it's like probably shouldn't be in that relationship.
I think that's such a solid way of gauging it. I love those two things, having that balance. I don't think there's a better way that you can put that, honestly.
Yeah.
Nice one, babe.
That's right. Good advice coming from me. But no, so...
Hashtag tips from your boyfriend.
Exactly. I should put that one up line. What advice I would give my younger self is I think that I would try to explain to him that relationships, girlfriends, are different than guy friends. This is some basic stuff, you know what I mean? Like, you have your guy friends. You have mutual interests with your guy friends. You guys shoot the shit and goof around and do whatever you guys want to do, right? You have things you do for fun with each other. But those should all be pretty much different from your girlfriend. You should have mutual interests with your girlfriend. Like once you have a girlfriend, like all these kind of like new areas of life kind of open up to you. You know what I mean? Like you're not going to be going out to dinner with one of your guy friends, like one-on-one or something like that. You're not going to be going on these like dates with your guy friends one-on-one. But you have a girlfriend, and so you can go do all that stuff with her. It's kind of nice. But like you can find interesting things to do with her that's separate than what you do with your guy friends. Like if you game with your guy friends, like I do with some of mine, it's like that really shouldn't be like a shared activity with your girlfriend, essentially, especially if she's not into gaming. Like if you find her because she's into gaming, then like you found one girl out of 100 that likes video games, I think. And then like, I don't know, talk to her like an adult almost, or talk to her like you guys are the same age. Just don't like go down to the immaturity level of your guy friends, essentially. I don't know how to describe it.
No, I mean, I'm sure that like teenage boys, like you said, very much come from that place of just kind of no one gives them a guidebook of, you know, where to go, and figuring out on your own has got to be hard. It's funny because I've never considered that, because I've always come from the girl's perspective of like, why are guys so stupid? So
it's just communication. It's just guy talk.
Yeah.
Guys have guy talk.
Right.
Where it's just like the communication dumbs down to a lowest common denominator for all of you guys, and you're all okay with it because you all understand. You know what I mean? Like everybody makes the joke about guys grunting, but it's like it's fine. If you need a grunt, you need a grunt.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you're all sitting in a circle looking at your phones, and one of you says something funny, the other goes, huh, and then it's just like it's fine. Like, it's fine. Don't do that, girlfriends.
To be a dude.
Yeah. Different type of relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me too, trying to think of another tip I would give my younger self when it comes to dating. That's a tough one, actually. I had it, and then it like went boop.
Mm-hmm.
Because I started going to like caveman talk. my brain.
Here's another basic tip for the young guys out there, for myself if I was young. Girlfriends are more physically intimate. Holding hands, cuddling, hugging, you know what I mean?
For example?
It's like, yeah, that's like completely normal. You know what I mean? Usually with your guy buddies, you have like this space between you guys when it's like, okay, well, you're sitting there, I'm sitting here, everything's fine. Versus like with girls, especially with a girlfriend, it's like you can be just sitting on top of each other almost when you're just hanging out together. You know what I mean? Or when you're walking down the street, hold hands, or then like hugging each other when you first see each other, things like that. And I think that's completely normal.
Yeah. I think I would have told
comfy with
myself to allow guys to take care of me a little bit more because I felt like it made me look better if I was a strong, independent woman. Like, all my women are independent, throw your hands up at me. So yeah, that was like the mantra, right? So I thought that opening doors for myself and then doing things for myself, paying for myself, whatever, was a good thing and made me look better. And I think looking back, just allowing myself to be taken care of a little bit, like not to say like go find yourself a sugar daddy, but to like, you want to have a partner who wants to look out for you, right? And have your back. And it's not a weakness on your side to accept that or to receive it. So if he's offering that to you, don't be like, no, I got this, I'm cool. Just say yes. So, and like, obviously I'm not saying like take advantage or actively seek that out where, you know, you want him to take care of everything for you. But if he's offering it, don't say no just out of pride.
And there should be also like some reciprocation on your side.
Absolutely.
Like, in other ways. It doesn't have to be like those specific ways as well.
Yeah.
And then the opposite side of that also, for guys, when you're first getting into like your first relationship with a girl and all that, it's like your first essentially taste of responsibility. Whereas you're growing up, you're a kid, you have parents, they're responsible for you. But now, maybe you might have like already experienced this like in other ways if you have like a younger sibling and you had to like babysit them. Not a good example, but like have like some sort of responsibilities. Like with the girlfriend, you have some responsibilities to her as well. Number one, oftentimes it'll be up to you kind of to, I don't know how to describe this.
To initiate?
To initiate a conversation, to initiate like in the courting phase, right, before your girlfriend and boyfriend, it is your responsibility essentially to initiate things. Once it's initiated and the ball is rolling, they're supposed to be back and forth, right? But you cannot expect her to make the first move to come talk to you or like to say hi and like to ask you on a date, things like that. No, you're the guy, it's your responsibility to go start talking to her. And then like once you're talking, it's a two-way street, but in order to start the talk, it's your responsibility. Same thing, like once you're on the date, two-way street, but it's your responsibility to start the date, to like ask her on a date. It's also your responsibility to ask her to be your girlfriend, your responsibility to ask her to be your wife, way down the line, things like that, you know what I mean? And so like, it's small acts of responsibilities that you as a guy have to take. And I think you should get comfy with it sooner than later.
Yeah. And I would say on the other side of it, being a woman or being a girl, teenage girl, whatever, college, you name it, make it clear what you want. Like if there's something that you're really truly wanting or needing, like put yourself out there and ask for it or throw it out there. Or like say you have a guy that you're crushing on and he hasn't made a move yet. Like, does he even know that you're interested in him? I think that's a big one for me too, where it's just like I kept it all like hidden together and just assumed like, oh, well, he's got to know that, you know, I think he's cute or whatever. And I don't think I made it obvious at all. And if anything, I was probably giving like guarded vibes where I made myself unapproachable, or he probably didn't think I was that into it because I was trying to act cool, right? Like, so I think being clear about like if you like someone, like let them know, you know, it's not a bad thing, right? To and then also too, if there are things that you want clarity on, like don't be afraid to ask to like get clarity too.
Yeah, I feel like that's hard advice for teenagers.
It is, but I think it's like if I had gone back in time and had someone like tell me basic like communication skills, right? Like I had to learn this way later in life. And like, obviously as a teenager, you're just kind of blundering through everything. But
Yeah.
if you can take that and absorb it, you will save yourself so much like heartache in the long run, because I think communication is such a huge part of it.
Yeah, communication is difficult. You definitely have to learn that as you go, especially when you're younger.
Yeah. But even just being able to like voice what you need, like I think that's just like a basic life skill that doesn't come naturally to a lot of people, especially girls, because girls are kind of taught to be like the selfless, you know, put others before you kind of thing. And so I think that when it comes to asking for what you want, it can be really difficult, or make it seem like I don't know, not worthy enough isn't a good word, but just almost like it's hard to give yourself permission to ask for what you want.
So is there like a specific situation that you're thinking of?
I'm just thinking of like, so say you're talking to a guy and he hasn't asked you out quite yet, and you're like, hey, like let's go hang out, or like, hey, like let's grab lunch sometime, or whatever. Like, or even if you're dating and you're not really sure, like, does he actually like me? Is he just having fun? Like, what is this? Like, not being, instead of just being like, okay, well, I'm just gonna pretend like I'm cool with it, and then like if he brings it up, he brings it up. Like, if you want to know, like, hey, like, so are you dating other people, or you know, what do you think about this, or whatever, just not being afraid to ask, instead of just being in limbo and just thinking that you're good being in limbo and not having any clarity and just kind of miserable through it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's it's not a bad piece of advice, because a lot of women, I think, end up in relationships or in situations like that, situationships literally, where nothing is clear, nothing is set in stone, no action is being taken, no progress is being made, and that's pretty much intentional from the guy's perspective.
Yeah.
And so it's like, if you want to ask for things and to clarify things, that's a good thing. But I feel like if you do find yourself in that situation, you may end up with a guy who wanted, like, you may end up asking a guy who intentionally wanted things to be vague, who didn't want to clarify things.
Sure.
And so when you ask for clarification, you might kind of like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the end of that.
But better that than to be strung along thinking that it's something that it's not. Like,
Yes.
I think that's a worse situation than getting, oh, that's not what I want, and then getting a chance to move on.
As long as you're aware.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Don't go into it asking, No.
Go ahead.
Don't go in and ask, don't go to the situations and like asking the question and thinking everything's going to stay the same after the fact. It's not.
Yeah. Another piece of advice I would totally give myself is that there are so many guys out there. There are so many good guys out there. And I think that it's so easy to be like, there are no men out there for me. No one's going to get me. There's no one as hot as this one guy that I fell in love with and doesn't love me back. And whatever it is, like I think that's one thing that was kind of actually good for me about like doing online dating, is that you realize like there's so many dudes out there, and like there are so many actually good guys out there, and there's not just like that one person for you, and if it doesn't work out between you two, then you're SOL for the rest of your life, and I think that's something, just having a little perspective there is a good thing.
Yeah. It's a good thing from the other perspective also, where it's like, from the guy's perspective, if things didn't work out, or if like you ask a girl out and she's not interested, it's like, yeah, it sucks. I've been there, done that. But like, there are other girls out there.
Yeah.
So it'll be all right. I don't know, what other piece of advice would I give my younger self? I think that's pretty much it. Because like at that point, it's like, be intentional about dating, understand that they're not your guy friends, and then like take a little bit of responsibility.
Yeah.
And so like, if you're interested in someone, get to know them a little bit, and then maybe ask them out on a date. And don't ask him out on a date. Don't literally be like, hey, do you want to go on a date? Just like, use whatever terminology is cool with the kids. You know what I mean? I think when I was younger, everybody was asking each other to hang out. And so I don't know if it's the same now. You know what I mean? Maybe it's like different like terminology now.
Yeah. And I think from a girl's perspective, don't just put so much pressure on yourself when you're dating someone. Just actually enjoy it. And then second of all, ask for clarity when you want it, get out of that situationship if you're in one. Yeah. And then there are so many guys out there that if the one that you were crushing on isn't working out for you, then don't get stuck on it.
But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Try to get to know them also. It's nice. Ask them questions and like learn about them. Have fun conversations about random crap you see on the internet or something. You know, like read something funny, just show it to them. Maybe they'll laugh. That'll be a good sign. If they don't laugh, you're just like, why didn't you laugh? Having like the same or similar like sense of humor is a really good thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Makes things easier.
Yeah.
But yeah, don't want to keep overwhelming kids these days because it's like if you give them like 10 pieces of advice, they're just gonna be like, I don't remember anything. Yeah. But streams of thought today.
Not too much. I was attempting my 1000th loaf of gluten-free bread today.
Yeah.
And it turned out very dense, which I'm frustrated by. But so we went to this bakery, panaderia in Barcelona that had like the best like fluffy gluten-free bread, and I emailed them and it was like, hey, can I get a recipe from your place because I dream of your bread day and night? And they said that they couldn't give me the recipe, but they gave me their mentor's like website, and he has a whole training for gluten-free stuff, and so I ended up getting a cookbook, bake book, whatever, from him. So I have hope. So I'm gonna have to translate it from Spanish to English and all the recipes and all that, but it gives me hope. Other than that, I am so grateful it's spring. Like what a difference. I feel like my mood has just like radically lifted from being sunnier and having stuff on the trees. And then outside of that, I don't know. I feel like you and I are in a bit of a holding pattern right now. We got a few things like kind of in the works, kind of cooking, but not fully there yet. And so I think because of that, it can kind of feel like on a holding pattern. And so it's an interesting season.
I've been thinking about it. It's not really a holding pattern anymore. We're just not doing sprints anymore. Where it's just like all the things that we're trying to accomplish take time.
Sure.
And so like we're still making steps and progress towards the things we want to do. It's just, you know, it's not like a 100-meter sprint. It's like a marathon at this point.
Yeah.
And so like we're not a holding pattern. We're just on mile 5 out of 26. You know what I mean?
That's a good point. Yeah, I could see that.
We're making progress. We'll
I'm
get
not
there.
an endurance athlete. That's why I don't enjoy it.
We're making progress. We're getting there.
That's true.
But like, it just takes time.
Yeah.
And then when we have kids, that'll be like an 18-year project.
Yeah.
Or 22-year, whatever. But streams of thought on my side. My birthday was yesterday. I turned 35.
Yeah.
My birthday was nice. She got me a book about making and fermenting yogurt and kefir, so I'm going to read that and try to make some yogurt in the future. I've tried twice to make yogurt, or 3 times now. Twice? I've tried twice to make yogurt, and I failed twice, and I made kefir instead. So I bought like a store-bought yogurt that we really enjoy, and I tried to essentially make more of it by like making my own coconut milk and then just like blending in this yogurt that we got at the store and then letting it ferment for however many hours. And then by the end of it, instead of getting like a yogurt, I got a kefir.
Yeah.
And so...
Which is like a drinkable fermented yogurt, essentially.
Yeah.
So.
It's very liquidy.
Similar, just more runny.
There's just not a lot of solids in there.
Yeah, you can't just take a spoon and whatever. You'd have to drink it.
You have to drink it, yeah, 100%. But it's like, it's very tart, and then, because the yogurt itself is not tart. So we mixed the yogurt in, it fermented, it became very, very tart because all the sugars were essentially eaten by all the bacteria in there. And then we had to sweeten it up with some mango chunks.
Yeah.
We blended some mango into it, and it was really good. I liked it a lot.
But tell about your other birthday gift.
Yeah, and then last weekend, my other birthday gift was a flying lesson, which was insane. Because up until about 15 minutes before the lesson itself, I didn't know what the birthday present was.
I didn't tell him. I was like, this is going to be a complete surprise. And he kind of had an idea because I had mentioned in the past, I don't know how you got an idea actually, but I think I had mentioned in the past like that I had looked up like local things to do, and that was something that was kind of on the option. So I don't know if maybe that's why it stuck in your brain. But yeah, he had no idea.
I had no idea. My first top guess would have been like a little joyride in a plane or something along those lines. I did not think to myself that I was going to be actually flying the plane, so I just was not mentally prepared for it. It was awesome, and in hindsight, I really enjoyed myself, and I'm really going to remember it very vividly from now on. In practice, in the moment, when we were like preparing and doing all that stuff, like the instructor came out and said, "You ready for your like discovery flight? You're going to be flying." And I'm like, "I'm going to be flying?" He's like, "Yeah, you're gonna be flying. I'm gonna have you take off, and I'm gonna have you fly." And I'm like, "I'm gonna be taking off."
His face, though, he just like stared at the pilot. He was like, "You realize this is my first time, right?" And he's like, "You're good with this?" He's like, "Because if you're good, like I'm good." It was really fun. I was in the back seat of the plane too, so I got to experience like all of it from the back seat too.
Yeah, I was stressed. I was stressed during the entire flight because number one, I didn't think I was going to fly, but then I ended up flying. Number two, takeoff was scary. Number three, he kind of led with the fact that it was a windy day also.
Yeah.
And then I asked him like on a 1 to 10 scale how windy it was. He said it was like a 5 out of 10 windy. And I'm like, this is my first time flying. It's 5 out of 10 windy. The fucking wind is blowing, the wind is blowing the airplane back and forth. So I'm sitting in the airplane. All of a sudden, I just feel like the freaking plane, like the wind pushed me like left and right. You know what I mean?
To be fair, like just to validate what he's saying, when we were landing, so we flew from Beverly Airport to Portsmouth, New Hampshire. And so the instructor was going to land the plane.
Yeah.
And when he went to land the first time, there was a gust of wind coming from the side. And he actually pulled up and like quit the landing because he didn't feel comfortable with it just because of that gust of wind. And so he had to come around and then land for real the second time. And so that just goes to show just how windy it was. And I could feel it kind of like bouncing. And it's interesting too because it was not a smooth ride.
No.
It was bumpy and you kind of feel like, and you're like on the controls like, ah!
And the controls are fine. There was less feedback than I thought it would be because I thought that maybe like with a small plane like that, like when you're pulling and pushing like this, that you would feel the air a little bit more strongly in the what did you call it? It's not a joystick.
The yoke.
The yoke. But I couldn't really feel it that much. And then number two, when the wind kind of starts blowing from the side and it takes the plane in one direction, and you're counter steering, and for some reason the plane isn't like righting itself, so you counter steer more. It's still not righting itself, so you counter steer even more. And all of a sudden you're flying straight, but your yoke is like all the way to the right or to the left, and you're just like, okay, this is what it takes for me to fly straight. Because the wind is blowing. And then the wind stops blowing, and all of a sudden you start banking to the right.
I feel like it took you a good 3 hours to come down from it. Your adrenaline was so high.
Yeah. It was fun, though. It was interesting. Oh, it was wild, actually. I don't know. The instruments were entirely overwhelming. The view of the plane was not quite what I was expecting. You really couldn't even see the horizon. All you saw was you couldn't see the ground from in front of you. All you could see is the sky up, and that's what kept you at altitude. Because if you even tip the nose down a little bit so you can kind of see the horizon just peek over the front of the plane, you just start losing altitude because that's how the plane is. And then I don't know, the wind just kept throwing me back and forth. I felt like the tail moving out left and right from behind me. I felt like it was pushing me left and right, up and down. And then, I don't know, it was crazy.
Yeah.
I wish I was a little more mentally prepared for it.
Sorry, babe.
Yeah. But it was fun. I would definitely do it again.
So it was low-key validating for me because between the two of us, I've been the one who's had to learn a lot of things out of my comfort zone. I've had to try to learn how to snowboard. I'm trying to learn how to drive a stick shift. And so you've seen me out of my element a lot of times, but I've never really gotten to see that side of you. Going to California has been out of your element for sure, but outside of that, learning a new skill. So it was interesting for me because I had never seen him nervous before. And so that was a whole new experience for me of just oh, this is Chingis when he's kind of nervous about learning something new. And so, yeah.
I would say that's less nervous and more stressed. I have a nervous response to things, but then I have a stress response to things.
That's true.
I think
Your nervous response is different.
No, my nervous response is
shouldn't
like,
have done that.
I know. My nervous response is different.
You actually didn't touch your nose at all today. Maybe the flight took it out of you.
I try not
It
to think
stressed
about
it
it.
out of you. Everything
Maybe.
just compared just doesn't seem stressful.
Maybe.
It's a win.
But yeah, I was like a stress response to like figuring all that stuff out. It wasn't a
Yeah.
nervous response. I feel like if I was mentally prepared for it and I was like driving up to it, I would have had a nervous response.
Yeah.
Where I like hike myself up and I'm like psyching myself out and like really looking forward to it. I'd have like a nervous response versus just being thrown into it. It was just a stress response.
Sorry, babe.
Yeah. It was interesting though. It was a lot of fun.
Nice.
Way too much information. Way too, like I won't remember anything. But about the plane anyways. I remember the experience.
Sure.
I know exactly how I felt.
Yeah.
But it was a lot of fun. But yeah, that's what we did for my birthday.
Yeah.
That's what has been on my mind. And now another year until my next birthday. And then your birthday's coming up.
That's right.
Yeah,
Taurus.
that's right. I'm also a Taurus. What else? I don't know. Big life stuff has been on my mind. But that's pretty much it. Small stuff is just like I just read Reddit for drama. That's pretty much like my pastime almost. It's fun. I don't know. Any last thoughts?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Well, I think we've been trying to make more reels on TikTok and YouTube Shorts and all that kinds of stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're trying to include more videos, just more snapshots of us during life and, you know, again, as it pertains to like health or relationships. And so let us know what you like, what you want to see and see less of, see more of.
Yeah, and I think we want to try to stick to that almost exclusively, like pretty like solidly in like health topics of the day, anything that we might experience or anything we might read about, and then same with relationships as well.
Yeah.
Like how we feel about things in our relationship, how we see others maybe sometimes doing things, and like any sort of like trending topics about it.
Yeah.
And that way, like whenever we're on YouTube Shorts or like on TikTok or something like that, it'll just be like health would be like, oh well, I brew kombucha. So if like if your girl stopped by Scoby's, you should stop by. We'll definitely try to put some reels on there about yogurt when I get to it.
Yeah.
Your bread.
Once I finally get it.
Yeah. Should put some reels on there about my coconut milk and my almond milk.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cooking and all the kinds of stuff. That'd be good.
Yeah.
Workouts too. Exercise is a good one.
I would say mobility, stretching. We'll
Yeah.
start to do some of that. So yeah, we'll get a good variety up there.
Yeah, 100%. And then relationship stuff too, depending on like what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll try to be less controversial and more just like just good stuff.
Yeah. I think we're trying to come from a place of just what works for us and what, you know, where we're at, and then kind of sharing that with you, and what resonates, awesome, and what doesn't, just let it go. And I think that's kind of, yeah.
Yeah, because like I think my perspective on this is like I really would have appreciated some sort of some person to look up to or some mentor and these kinds of things when I was younger, so that I didn't have to kind of like learn all this crap on my own.
Yeah, agreed.
You know what I mean? Somebody to like when you want to like, I don't know how to describe it. It's like a decent analogy is like when you first start to go to the gym and exercise, right? You'll make every mistake under the sun and you'll probably injure yourself, and you'll learn from all your experience and all your injuries. But like, because you're going to be doing all this and stumbling over yourself, maybe it's just not going to be as effective. Versus like, if you start your gym journey or exercise journey with like a trainer or somebody who is experienced that's with you, that person will be able to give you solid tips and understandings of what you should and shouldn't be doing in order to protect you from injuries and to protect you from making the mistakes that you shouldn't be making. Obviously, everybody has an ego and they think they know what's best for themselves and they're going to be doing it. But like, even though they do have something that they think they're like, even though everyone thinks they're the smartest and the best, having somebody there to rely on, even though you may not want to rely on, but they're still there, would be, I think, invaluable.
Yeah.
And I'm coming at it from the perspective, it's just like, let's listen, if you're going to come in and like watch us or do something, then like we're going to try to help.
Yeah. And I think we also too want to try to talk about things that other people aren't necessarily talking about. And I think sometimes people often neglect the things that are most basic in relationships or health because it's not fancy or flashy enough. And I think that that's something that also is something that we want to do too, is just kind of bring it down to like what really works and kind of bring it back to basics in a way.
Yeah, like we're not gonna give you like 100 tips about something like Cosmo or you know what I mean,
Yeah.
or put out. We'll just get you back to the basics.
Yeah.
And that's just like one of the most important things about anything you do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like whenever you go to learn a sport, you start getting more and more advanced in the sport, but then like you always neglect the basics. So you go back to the basics and you have to understand that like the basics are the foundation of the pyramid that you build on. You might want to build up taller and taller and reach greater heights in whatever you're doing, but it's just like at one point it becomes too thin and it's like at risk of falling over. And so you need to just keep building your foundation more and more. Just keep putting down blocks into the base, into the basics, and you'll be able to reach higher and higher. Yeah. Anyways, when are we gonna stream next? Do you know?
Sunday?
Yeah,
Sunday at 7?
But we'll announce.
Oh, no, we're at your parents' for dinner that night.
Yeah, we are. So maybe not Sunday.
Yeah. We'll announce it.
Yep, we'll announce it the day of. Well, yeah, thanks for joining us. This is at Tipsy and Your Boyfriend on YouTube and TikTok and Instagram. I have a personal Twitter at the Calliston.
And I have Instagram and TikTok at Bethany Calliston.
All right, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you guys next time.
Yeah, good night.
See ya.